Now the Sean Diddy Combs investigation.
Well, Sean Diddy Combs.
Now the Sean Diddy Combs.
What's one misconception about you?
There are no misconceptions about me.
Before he became a billionaire mogul and one of the most polarizing figures in music, Sean P. Diddy Combs was just another ambitious kid, fighting for a place in the world. But behind the glitz, the glamour, and the power lies a darker story, a story of trauma, betrayal, and transformation. In Peacock's explosive documentary, Making the Bad Boy, the layers of Sean Combs' life are peeled back, revealing an untold history that few have ever heard. From a childhood shaped by tragedy and insecurity to the pivotal moments that forged his relentless drive for dominance, this isn't just a rise to fame, it's the making of a monster. Welcome to Movie Recap, where we uncover the stories behind the legends. Today, we dive into the hidden chapters of Sean Combs' life, exploring the untold truth of his rise and the events that shaped the infamous figure we know today. I used to work with Sean Combs, and let me be clear, I don't usually speak on another man unless his business directly impacts mine. But if you only knew the things I've been through, the kind of hell I've survived, let me tell you, the silence came at a heavy cost, a bounty on my head. What does the public know? That's just the tip of the iceberg. It's been 20 years of holding back the real story. The documentary opens with an intriguing setup. The crew sets out to meet someone who has deep knowledge about Sean Combs' early years. This man, once fully immersed in the glitz and glamour of that world, left it all behind after a near-death experience. Now he lives completely off the grid, tucked away in the wilderness, far from the chaos of his past. His name is Tim Patterson. Sean's childhood friend, Tim, invites the crew into his home, giving them a tour as the cameras roll. When asked if this place feels the same as it did back when he and Sean were growing up, Tim chuckles and shakes his head. No, he replies. That's when the conversation shifts, and he begins to paint a vivid picture of Sean's early life. Tim reflects on all the noise surrounding Sean today, the allegations of sexual assault, whispers of sex trafficking, drugs, and the chaos that's made him a controversial figure. He's public enemy number one now, Tim says, his tone somber. But let me make this clear. I don't condone any of the things I've heard or seen. He's been monsterized. But monsters are made. Tim makes an important distinction. He knows Sean, the boy, the friend, not Diddy, not love, not the larger-than-life personas that have followed him. I've never met those people, Tim declares. Then he begins to delve into Sean's roots. Sean is the son of two Harlem it people, he explains. Janice, his mother, and Melvin, his father. Sean grew up in Mount Vernon, a neighborhood just outside Manhattan. But while Janice was there to raise him, Melvin wasn't around. He was absent for much of Sean's formative years, leaving a void that shaped the man Sean would become. Gene Deal, Sean Combs' former bodyguard, sheds light on Sean's father, Melvin. He describes Melvin as a gangster, a hustler, and a player who navigated the dangerous streets of New York. Melvin was part of a crew led by the infamous Harlem kingpin, Nicky Barnes. However, Gene reveals a darker truth. Melvin was also a rat, someone who fed information to the cops. This betrayal ultimately led to his death, but before his demise, he managed to leave behind a significant amount of money for his family. After Melvin's death, Sean's mother, Janice, extended a helping hand to her friend, Tim's mother, inviting her to move in with them. This marked the beginning of Tim and Sean's friendship. Tim recalls his first encounter with Sean vividly. From the moment they met, Tim knew Sean was different. He wasn't like the kids from the ghetto. Sean stood out, a bright, golden-skinned boy, shiny and healthy, dressed like a 4-year-old wearing a wardrobe fit for a grown man. Lee Davis, also known as DJ Easy Lee, recalls Sean's time as a student-athlete at Mount St. Michael, a private school. While Sean was on the football team, Lee makes it clear that he wasn't exactly a standout player, just another name on the roster. Rich Parker, another friend from Sean's early days, adds more color to the story. He shares that Sean was part of a dance and fashion crew called the 7 Up Crew. Known for their style, the crew would strut around flaunting their flashy clothes and accessories. Sean, still just a kid, stood out with a Gucci watch, a rare sight for a black teenager back then. The image of Sean in private school uniforms, rocking luxury accessories like a Gucci watch, paints a stark contrast to the reality faced by many black kids around him, most of whom grew up without father figures. Even at that young age, Sean seemed to draw attention, whether admiration or resentment, as if he was already a public enemy in the making. Despite his outward confidence, those close to Sean reveal a more vulnerable side. Rich describes him as shy and not particularly tough, making him an easy target for bullying. Sean endured a lot, including getting hit on the head multiple times, a harsh reminder of how different his world seemed from those around him. Tim recalls a tough memory from Sean's childhood, a towering 6-foot-tall kid named Jonathan who relentlessly bullied Sean, often reducing him to tears. Tim, feeling the need to protect him, stepped in as his defender. But after graduating, Tim left for the military, leaving Sean to navigate his challenges alone. Dr. Carolyn West, an expert on domestic violence and sex trafficking, provides a psychological perspective on Sean's early struggles. She explains that fatherless children, particularly those exposed to violence and domestic abuse, often yearn to belong to something bigger, a group, a gang, or a community. This intense need for acceptance can manifest as a relentless desire for attention and validation. Gene Deal, Sean's former bodyguard, corroborates this idea with an eye-opening revelation. He shares that in 1989, Sean joined the same game gang alongside him. They partied, went clubbing, and Sean always wanted to be in the mix with the crew. However, Sean's suburban background made him an outsider in the Harlem-based gang. Many members disliked him, leading to a brutal incident where they chased him down, caught him, and beat him. The documentary even highlights a Same Game t-shirt as a reminder of those days. When Tim returned from the military, he found that Sean was no longer the timid boy he once knew. Sean had transformed, introducing himself with a new name, Puff. "The guy you knew is dead," Sean declared. "The sissy, the wimp, the goofy pushover kid, that's all gone." This was the turning point, a moment Tim describes as the birth of the monster. It was as though a switch had been flipped, unleashing a new persona, a hardened, unrelenting version of Sean. All the insecurities, the longing to fit in, and the desire to feel powerful were now buried behind a mask. It wasn't just Sean anymore. It was someone else entirely, a persona shaped by pain, rejection, and a burning need to never feel powerless again. Sean's first girlfriend, Tracy, was a Brooklyn girl who marked the beginning of his rise in social circles. Known for being a smooth talker, Sean earned a reputation as a gentleman among women. Having one of the most sought-after girls only fueled his growing popularity. But with that came plenty of drama, an early sign of the chaos that would continue to follow him. Even in his youth, Sean's obsession with power and influence was clear, but his fixation on music became the perfect outlet. By 1987, while attending Howard University, Sean began scheming his way into the industry. He targeted Ron Lawrence, a classmate and producer with industry connections, doing whatever it took to get close to him. On campus, Sean also latched onto Heavy D, a Mount Vernon celebrity and the first act signed to Uptown Records. Sean saw Heavy D as a stepping stone and used the connection to push his way into the label. Uptown Records was just starting to pivot towards hip-hop, with Al B sure as their biggest star and financial backer. The label also boasted rising talents like Jodeci and Mary J. Blige. Sean didn't just want to join Uptown Records. He wanted to take control. His tactics to gain the attention of Uptown Records president Andre Harrell were relentless. Whether through manipulation, persistence, or sheer audacity, Sean forced his way in as an intern. From there, he began climbing the ladder, not out of passion, but out of a deep-seated desire for power and validation. Sean's early days at Uptown set the stage for his transformation. This wasn't a story of hard work and inspiration. It was the birth of the monster, a man who would do whatever it took to rise, hide his insecurities, and bury any trace of weakness behind a mask of confidence and ambition. In the documentary, the interviewer asks Al B. Sheer when he first met Sean. Al B shrugs off the question, admitting he doesn't really remember. I didn't hang out with him much, he says plainly. But one thing he does recall is Sean's personality. He always wanted to be the loudest person in the room. He liked to show his dominance. It's a defining trait that would later become a cornerstone of his public persona. The narrative then shifts to the infamous event that forever altered Sean's trajectory, the moment that created Daddy Puff. Before this tragedy, Sean Combs was just another ambitious figure trying to make his way in the music industry. But after this, his name would be cemented in infamy. It all began when Heavy D decided to host a celebrity charity basketball game. What was meant to be a fun, star-studded event for a good cause would instead become the catalyst for a tragedy that changed everything, sparking the rise of the monster we now know as Sean.